Welcome back to the river, everybody. I lied to you. I said I'd hit up a lake. Change of plans. I'm back on a river here, a little bit less smoky, although there is still some smoke in the air. This is our very first stop. First of all, I conned a friend into coming gold mining. Told him that he'd get filthy rich. If only. We basically picked this little spot here on shore, and right behind me, there's, let me show you a close up. There's my strawberries and a whole bunch of these strawberry plants. So that's pretty good. And normally it takes a while to find some gold. This spot right here where we're digging, see if I can, well, for once I have two pans going, so first I gotta train him up a little bit. He's picking it up really quick, but the very first pan had about 25 colors in it. So I couldn't ask for better. For the, like, we pulled up, first shovel, there it was. So hopefully we can dial this spot in a little bit better. Not good enough to dig yet, but if your first pan shows that, well, we're in for a good trip. So can't get much better than that. Stay tuned. Hopefully we'll have that Highbanker set up soon and put in some work. Weather is just phenomenal. It's warm, but when you're going down the boat or going down the river in your boat, you get that cool wind blowing at you, and it's just refreshing. It's nice. The water is like, the last river I was at, it was just like bathtub, disgustingly warm. This, I would say, oh, it's nice warm. It's like, it's cold. It's actually a little bit chilly, but it's not that take your breath away chilly. So it's the perfect amount of you can actually cool off in the water on a nice hot day. I would prefer to say less smoke in the air, but I mean, you can't ask for everything. So it's going to be an awesome night to camp. The last spot, our first pans were our best pans. We gave it a good hard go there, but I guess we just lucked out and found the best pans first. But went upriver a little bit further and showing some promise here and there, but it's about that time to maybe set up camp and get a fire going. We're actually allowed to have a fire here, even though all this smoke's coming in from BC. So we'll have a proper camping trip, get a nice blaze going, and just enjoy the evening. All parked up for the night. Got a beautiful gravel bar to explore tomorrow. Tent set up over there. Second tent set up over there. And what's going on around this little fire, which I'm very excited that we were allowed to have.
Flank steak.
This is a new one for me, but see how the old steak by fire on a stick goes. Tomato, salt, pepper.
Yeah.
I had the salt, he had the pepper, so ill prepared as always, but together we got ourselves a delicious meal. That's pretty good. Yeah. Sear over the coals. Not bad. Works in a pinch. You just put your head against that wall, you silly. Go, no, you almost had it. You almost had it. You were so close. You can, yes. It's gonna be a good day. Love this thing. And the first mission of the day. All the way down there. I want to do a bunch of pans all the way to the edge of the forest. Right where I'm standing. Point this down around here. If you pan around here, there's some river rock here, but there's really not that much black sand and very, very little gold. Like, occasionally you get a speck. But there's a lot of these rocks like this, which are sharp edges, and they've all kind of tumbled down from right upstream. Just around that corner there's a big cliff,
And so everything here, there's a bunch of like little shale and clay and not river worn stuff. And it's kind of like that cliff right there dumps all the stuff into the river, and then it kind of washes up here, and then you don't get that gold that's gotten kicked up out of the river. So instead of digging all up here at the very start of the gravel bar, my plan is, and where our tents are set up, there isn't very much either. So I'm gonna head out because there's this calm water, kind of where we've got our boat, and try down there, and then just work my way in, and then go about, I don't know, a couple 100 meters downstream from there, try again, and then do the very bottom end of the gravel bar and see how we do before moving on to the next spot. Should be several hours of hard work panning this morning.
Packing up at this spot, it's just not holding the gold that I would like to see. Found a few little specks here and there, but no gold. And I think what might be going on, right upriver from here, there's a big cliff, and it's dumping all that in, so it's sort of like fresh stuff that hasn't been like worked through by the river. Then we come downriver, a section like this. So this is all kind of cut out, and you think, oh, did somebody dig this? But there's no tailings pile, and no indication that somebody's knocked down a tailings pile. And no matter where you pan, like here, there, no gold. And I think what's happening there is that's actually the ice. The giant chunks of ice come in here, and they'll basically, the ice builds up, and then underneath the ice, normally the gravel bar will look like what's right here. But underneath the ice builds up, and then you get all this mud that builds up under the ice. So everything here, you get all these horsetails, it's this really fine, silty, sandy stuff. That's actually underneath the ice all winter. That basically builds up and gets all mucky, and then you need a spring flood to sort of wash that all away and concentrate out where the little pay streaks are. We never had that spring flood. So this mucky stuff is just growing crazy with grass, no concentrated gold in it, and sections like this, I think when the breakup happened, big chunk of this sort of got picked up, like the ice started floating away with all that like ice trapped in underneath it, and it tore it downstream. And it sets piles of this stuff randomly. So I'm going to walk down to a pile down there. You'd look at it, it's a pile of gravel. You'd assume, hey, somebody dug this. This is definitely tailings. But you look in the pile, and it's a mixture of like fine sand, big rocks, everything. There's no way that it's somebody's tailings. It's just naturally plunked there by the ice, and you'd never believe it. There's no hole where this would have come from for somebody to dig this. And these are pieces of that cliff up there that have sort of just disintegrated and melted into place. And downriver from here, there's one that's actually quite tall. They basically just, all the mud gets sent up, and then there's a few places where gravel sort of dumps from the ice. At least I am assuming that's what's happening, because I never saw the ice do this, but it's strange. So I think if I'm going to find any gold, gravel bars like this aren't going to be super helpful. I'm going to try to find a bit of a bank, sort of like the far side of the river here. That's like fast flowing water right there, but if I can get something like that with a little bit I can dig under it, then maybe even though we haven't had a good spring flood, I can have a chance at finding some gold, because that's kind of where our best pans were yesterday with 30 colors. So I've given up on the big flat gravel bars. We're looking up a section of this river. I've already forgotten the name of it, so don't ask. I have no idea where I am. But I'm just going to try for a shorter bank here. So here, steep to there. It is like the start of an inside bend, and it turns into a bit of a gravel bar downstream. But this bank wouldn't be quite as dependent on a big flood to move everything around, because it's kind of just chipping things off the edge here. So all that mud and stuff that's been building up as you go further downstream on these gravel bars is not really an issue, hopefully. Right on top of the big rocks,
just where all the sandy grass is, and just the very top of the bank. Probably about 40 or 50 colors, but they're some coarse ones here, so it might be worth setting up. Seems like a perfectly good use of a gold pan. Oh wait, I'm not panning right now. Old habits die hard. I bet I can concentrate all the cranberries down to the bottom, you know? Gravity sort. Basically, stuck again. But making the most of it. Got some chips here. Jonathan was just saying this is better than the best patio Calgary has to offer right now, by far. Sort of a side river into our river here. Figured we'd explore, and kind of cool. I don't know how well this will show up on camera, but you got a rock here. The whole thing is sand behind it, and of course I don't have a dredge. Not that you're allowed to use those anyways, but I wonder if there's actual gold there, if this is even showing up at all on camera. But we'll leave that for later. I did bring a snorkeling mask, just because I figured it'd be fun to go swimming. So maybe I'll pull some Pioneer Poly stuff and get a pan of that. That's not a bad idea, actually. Maybe before I go swimming, there's this little issue right here. Again, not sure how this shows up, but the boat is sitting on a rock, and we're kind of stuck here. And because it's quite deep everywhere, and the rock is quite shallow, I'm not sure if I can get a foot on that rock and push off just with my boots, or if I'll just put the flip-flops on and hop right into the water here. I have to get the snorkeling mask on, and I'm gonna take a pan, if not that exact spot, yeah, that exact spot. See if there's anything in all that sand. Instead of swim goggles, I saw on sale for like, I think it was regular 60 bucks. It was on sale for 45 bucks. I wanted a snorkeling mask so I could kind of have a look around and just, oh, nice mess. Okay, so it's already coming out of the package here, but this is one of those full face snorkels, and Canadian Tire was where I went, and their regular just snorkel and mask had terrible reviews, and this had actually better reviews, and it was on sale, so I was like, alright, I'll give that a go. No idea what I'm doing. I think I know how to swim. Time to get rich. Alright, I'll need a gold pan.
That's a good one.
One more.
One more.
Oh, it was like holding onto a rock with one hand. That mask is really cool. I forgot how to snorkel, so I was like breathing in underwater, assuming, oh wait, no. But it just like stopped the valve or whatever. I'm used to penning classified. This is refreshing, but not cold. It's awesome. It's just the perfect temperature water. After like 20 minutes in here, I'd get cold and get out, but let's get this stratified down. Just do a quick pan on camera here. Yeah, your panning lesson of the day, when starting panning, first snorkel for some material, then fully stratify your material. Get some rocks out of here. I've got the two big riffles, so I'm going to be a little bit rough with it. Basically, all you really want to do is when you put the pan under water, you want the water to come in really slow, so you actually having the current come in this way. It doesn't affect any of the material, and then you only want it to do it's like washing on the way up. On the way up, everything flows out. On the way in, I'll show you how to do it wrong. I put it in like that, and it just took everything out of the riffles. So re-stratify down gently and up. Twist that around. There's gold. That's awesome. Like one speck. It's kind of hard with the current to finish pan this, so let me just put a little water in here. Two flecks. I bet they even show up on camera. And that was like not very well harvested. Oh, the one's a floater. Let me get it visible again for you. Okay, so there's one tiny one by my finger and one decent one right there. I'm gonna actually just try with a shovel, see if I can like dig from here into the pan, but there you go. But it's like dead centered, front to back, left and right. Maybe camera guy goes to the back of the boat. And then, oh, we got movement. Pull this way and almost got you free. I can see the rock showing up on this side now. Let me just say, I'm glad it's warm out. Here's your rock. Couple little aluminum bits on her there. And the anchor is holding, so you don't always have to use top tip. If you're out boating and you don't have a giant rock to perch your boat upon, you can just use an anchor like a normal person. I'm here all day, guys. Woo. First, what we're doing here. There's the La Trappe tailing sluice. I actually only had that on for about a third of the time. Set up on the Highbanker, double level running here, so you've got the top and the bottom. And out of the La Trappe, we've got decent size colors. Nothing spectacular. And if I typically find like an extra bonus 10% in the La Trappe, we had it on a third of the time. Hopefully there's going to be about 30 times this much in the rest of the cleanup. Probably an hour and a half run. See how she goes. Everything's back together, set up. This is everything just roughly panned down. Of course, you know, sparkles. I don't know about exactly how much we're going to find here, but that is another record breaker. A couple of decent chunks there, but that piece is like, let me set this down so I can put my finger in there for scale. It's not three-dimensional, like it's definitely a flat piece. Oh, where have I?
disappeared it too. There it is. Yeah. World's worst YouTube. Oh, there it is. It's got a little bit of thickness to it, but it's like, you know, paper thin. And get off my finger. Still on my finger. Anyways, there. Now it's not bad. Alberta piece. Always looks good when it's like this, but again, my personal guess is this is going to be less than a gram. It was about an hour and a half. This is a 2-hour run, so it was 2 hours, and it was like non-stop. Like Jonathan would dig, I would dig. While P was digging, I'd move the tailings or like pick away some of these big rocks. It's kind of just a bank like this, so we're picking out the big rocks kind of so that you can get at everything. Going deep, there doesn't seem to be much gold. It's all in the surface, like 6-inch to a foot kind of thing. And the sand up top, this really loose sand actually still has a little bit, like 4 or 5 colors in a shovel. But it's once it gets into the grass here that it has something to bite into. So that is where we're seeing our best pans, which are probably about 30 colors, some of them larger pieces, 30, 40 colors like that. And then so that's where it's been dug. This has not been dug, and so these are the big rocks that one guy can kind of like toss out of the way so the shovel can get. But the gravel that's under here, so probably from where my fingers are there, here up, that section is sort of what we're focusing on trying to dig. You can come down into this section a little bit, but it seems to taper off. So I think what's happened here, just to try to explain this, is river churns everything up. It's not in the glacial till over here. It's basically coming from the river, it gets tossed up. Some gets up onto the grass here, but it's really, really fine stuff, and it's just at the edge of the grass. It doesn't go much higher than that. And then these rocks here act as a sluice, and it sort of just catches in the top, you know, 6 to 12 inches of gravel there. And then down here, it seems like it hasn't really caught a lot. Like it has to be up in the bank. So there isn't as much down here as there is up there. Maybe in your situation that'll be helpful, but gold is different everywhere. If you find a spot like this, pan here, pan there, pan right, it's focusing on my finger, right just on this side of the rocks, just up into the grass. And then don't be afraid to pan up there in the grass. Right at the edge, sometimes you'll find good gold way up there in the grass. Sucks to dig it, you really need a trommel, but in this case, we're sort of dealing with a little thin band along here, and this is what we've dug so far in order to get, well, this is sort of a pan full of black sand. So cleanup to come later. End of day 2, so this will be our second night out on the river. Water went down overnight. Boat seems fine. Due to poor leveling strategies, our grill does not hold an egg without half the eggshell there to sort of pin it against the bacon. And that one needed a little rock on top to keep it there. But it does seem to be cooking. Not the most even heating surface. Side to me is definitely more cooked than the far side, but we're making do. Eggs are coming along nicely. Got some pepper on there. Apparently there's
Pepper rain.
sky pepper.
I really wonder what the fat guy with the jet boat that we saw yesterday and his slightly more attractive wife are doing for breakfast, because we have this excellent setup.
They were a interestingly matched couple. I think if I were to eat my bacon out of my gold pan like I did my cereal, the grease might be bad for my gold recovery, but this Garrett Super Sluice here has this beautiful little ringer on the bottom side, which looks like it was basically designed. The non-stick properties of this rock didn't work out very well. I have used some shale before down around Cranbrook area mining, and it was actually a non-stick surface for crepes. I'm gonna go have to fish that out. Oh, it landed on another hot rock to just continue cooking. All good. See how this goes. First of all, with the delicious farm eggs, as good as you could expect a delicious farm egg to be. Just pepper on these, no salt. The salt kind of came out of the bacon grease. And this bacon is still piping hot, so maybe let it sit for a bit. But works as a plate, and it's very stable, so you don't spill your stuff, which occasionally happens when you're out in the bush. I'm happy with it. 5 stars. For those less fortunate who do not have a Garrett Super Sluice, it is possible to eat your food in other types of plates.
We have here the MSR made in Thailand small pot lid. Then I'm going to take this one hot tomato, a little more egg scraps, just because we don't want to waste food. A bear would love to lick this rock when it cools, I'm sure. And that's breakfast.
Switching gears, time to get mining. I'm going to give you a full tour, sort of start to finish, where the water comes from, where it ends, why it's set up this way. Hope it's interesting. This here is my new pump. Sort of a work in progress, but it's just a Honda GX160 engine, regular 2-inch trash pump. I've got it necked down to a 1.5 because those are the hoses that I had previously. Out the back of the boat, there's just a hole there, and this material, I built a little box around it. This is called Roxol Comfort Board. It's an 1.5 inch thick board. It's actually kind of structural. It holds itself together, and it deadens the sound. So without the lid on, just running it with this all the way around it, and I've got pieces up against the boat, it absorbs a lot of the sound. Why I did this, I had some spare time. I was curious how much it would deaden the sound. Because I was curious, that's why I did it. I had the ability to try it. I was like, I wonder, and so I get a little too carried away with these projects. Bottom line is my old pump, the little Honda WX15, is amazing. It's just an excellent little pump. There were 2 issues with it. One, with the double level setup, if I'm running through a long section of lay flat, the further away you are from the river's edge, the less water ends up making it there. So I was a little concerned about being able to have just a ton of water flow to experiment and make sure that I was giving it enough water. Plus, that pump running at full throttle is noisier than this pump just puttering away at idle. So I wanted it to be quiet because it is annoying having this thing going in the background. Both of them at idle, the WX15 is actually quieter than this thing at idle. It's a really good motor. It's just, I needed it to be running pretty much full throttle to run this setup. Didn't want to do that anymore. Got this so that I could run further from the river, and for some other projects where I will actually have to pump uphill long distances and stuff, I thought I could justify it. It is quieter, so I'm not made of money. I gotta stop doing silly things like this, but it serves more purposes than just this. But there it is. You got a 2-inch pump. The intake sticks out the back of the boat, and then I had this from before, and I run it down the side of the boat. The purpose of having this is lay flat. You don't want it all kinked up. So with that hose, if your high banker is further or closer, you can just take more or less of this hose out, and you don't have to worry about having the boat positioned the exact distance away from your high banker. So we're gonna walk the length of the hose here, just so you can see. Trying to smooth it around, no kinks. When it's under pressure, that'll open up. And then on this end, I would even carry these little hoses on my Sea-Doo, just because it's super valuable. Yesterday, I had the high banker set just a few feet in that direction, and the hose end, like the end of this lay flat hose, didn't need to move. Basically, this just was able to flex over there and back and forth. So that bit of flexi hose is super helpful. That leads up to the spray bar, sprays into here. This is 3/16 of an inch screen. So I did have some 1/8 inch screen. I found that the open area wasn't quite enough. This 3/16, slightly bigger than an 1/8. It's got enough open area that everything sort of goes through, it's fine. If you're using this screen, one of the most important tools, some sort of a scrub brush. All of this organic matter, whenever you're working with grass, you can see there's some built up here, and all you do is you sort of scrape it down left and right a little bit, and you'll notice all of that grass is just clumping up and coming out of here. It's the only way you can keep this stuff open, essentially, when you're working with the organics. For just regular rocks, this stuff works amazingly. If I was dealing with grass a lot, some people go right up to a trommel. I'm not willing to make that big of a equipment change, but just some grizzly pieces at the bottom end I think would be helpful. I would keep the screen at the top for when it's got a lot of support underneath it, so you can throw big rocks into it without being all gentle. And then once that impact zone is dealt with, maybe from here down, just some little grizzlies, really narrow spacing. It would allow all of this organic matter to just go over, and you wouldn't have to clean the screen as often, maybe. The legs, I've got them buried under some loose rocks like this. Once it's set up, I'll shake the whole unit back and forth a little bit just to settle everything down. The second I turn this thing on, get the water running, put about 10 scoops through it, I will recheck the level. I'm not super happy with any legs that I've ever used over the years. They just tend to settle into the ground, or it's on a hard rock and it slips a little bit and it moves. So it is important to make sure that it's level while you're running, or at the level that you want it to be. Jiggle it around a little bit, bury the legs under some stuff. It tends to keep it pretty stable, but after the first 10 shovels with water in it running, just double check. This is my little level bubble. Now right now, yesterday I had this right in the middle. Today I'm running it a little bit steeper, and I'm experimenting with running it steeper. The amount of water that I'm putting through, I want to try to see less material, almost to the point where it's like, this can't be right, I'm losing material. I'm going to have just like a tiny little bit in here, and I want to see sort of what that does, and I'll be paying attention and seeing what percentages here and there and everything. Just an ongoing thing where I'm sort of trying to wrap my head around this mat a little bit better. The La Trappe just hangs on the bottom. So all this is, I'll just take it off here real quick. It's basically just sluice. It's got a little a knot tied here with a little washer there just for the heck of it. But it's just a piece that sits here. And all you do, I've got a little notch in the aluminum that holds this. Sorry if the camera work isn't perfect. And then slide that underneath. So now it's hanging underneath the sluice like that. I've got it sitting on a piece of wood that's sort of buried in on each side, so I can just take this piece of wood and raise or lower it to get this dialed in. Because I'm running 2 sluices worth of water into this, I'm keeping this fairly flat just so that it doesn't totally empty out, because it has way too much water in it. So that's how I'm trying to get the most out of this. Still finding I get about a bonus 10% in here, but I haven't done a proper test since the double level thing, so we'll see how that works. Then the rest of this is sort of where I was digging yesterday. So you've got your tailings here, and I've just sort of piled some up along the river side so that it can travel along here and then filter down through these rocks into where all the sand comes up to the river's edge here. So yesterday the river was up at this level, which is why this is sort of all flat here, and then it just tapers in. So it pretty much all stays right where it goes. And then the idea is, as the tailings build, I will keep sort of building a dam just to run them down the side here, and just sort of let the spread out through all these rocks a little bit better. This end of the sluice is where all of our coarse tailings are going to be. Some of these big rocks will have to move out, but the pile keeps getting bigger, and then you keep spreading the pile out. Keeps getting bigger, keep spreading the pile out. So throughout the day, if you see a little pile here, it's already been spread out several times probably, and that's the only way you can really do it without moving this sluice like every single hour. Target, we're digging right underneath my tent here. We may be taking just about a foot of this grass here. Just the very top inch has some decent gold in it. May just leave that and focus on about the top 3 or 4 feet of this gravel here, so one of us can go through ahead of time and just literally pick up the rocks,
throw them. Maybe not all that way, but if you pick up enough of these rocks here, get them out of the way, well, all of a sudden you've got this beautiful gravel, ready to dig, full of, again, not amazing gold, but enough to motivate us to get some exercise and dig. So that's the plan. We'll get her running and hopefully wind up with at least a few grams of gold by the end of the day. I just want to show you exactly how quiet this thing is. I'm holding the camera sort of arm's length and talking in a normal voice. This is just idle right now, so it's a little louder when it's not at idle, but I'm literally talking to a camera and my engine is running right next to me and there's water flowing out of the box. So this setup at idle with the lid, I think it works fine. There's an air hole at the back there as well as out here, and I do have at the bottom inlet here and two on the side, so it does get airflow through the box, but it gets warm in there. I don't think too warm to cause a problem, but if I'm running this thing hard, I think I need to put some more vents in the lid. Sort of, this is right where the exhaust comes out, but I'll take the lid off and you can see that even just having the sound deadening on all four sides, it doesn't reflect all the sound up, it actually absorbs all the sound. And so when you're standing over there, it's still really quiet even without the lid, but the lid does make a pretty good difference. So I'm going to take the lid off right now so you can hear. Just slide. So that's the engine running, and again, just having the sound deadening all around helps. So I'm going to crank it up quite good, get the flow going, and then we'll see how it sounds like from the Highbanker. The mic probably adjusts itself, so this is me talking definitely louder. Come down here, I don't know if you can hear this, but it's quieter because it's like directing the sound up. So when I go to the Highbanker, we'll see how quickly it's just like a nice quiet thing off in the distance. Right now I'm hearing that pop from the muffler, so maybe a little secondary muffler attachment would be helpful. But I'm hearing water, not a pump. Again, it was more of an experiment than anything else, but the stuff does work, so makes my quality of life slightly better while shoveling. It's quiet. I'm going to keep an eye on it. I don't know if I should have the lid on it. There's quite enough cooling going on, but even without that lid, it's a big improvement. So if anyone's annoyed at their pump being loud, and for some reason you have a ton of space and ability to do this, well, now you know. I know a lot of guys who do generators and stuff. They're like, oh, I wish my generator was quieter. Well, this was one way you could build a box, just that Roxol comfort board. I'm just not super motivated when I'm not seeing, like, you know, a lot of gold in the ground. Because I would consistently do about 1,000 shovels a day by myself, and today I just, maybe another 300 and we're good kind of thing, so. Still nice to get out, and it'll be good to have some actual color, so I am committed to continue digging, make sure we get a little bit of a clean out of this. Sometimes you just gotta do that, even though you're not onto the good gold, but box seems to be working alright, so that's always a bonus. The bottom mat has the edges trimmed off, so it slides up the box very easily, and then there's a lock at the front that mechanically holds it in place. This level sits on all these little rivets that holds it up the right amount. That slides up, and then the top mat comes with this sort of factory edge, and that fits tight in the box. So it's a pressure fit, slides up underneath the front like that, presses down, and that basically holds the top in place. And matter how much water you flow through it, it stays put, and as soon as you put some material in, all that sand kind of gets into the edges and locks it into place even better. So it's now ready to go for the next run. Can pick it up, move it down the bank, except for the fact that I'm lazy. We'll be camping tonight and heading home tomorrow. Check you guys at the cleanup and we'll see how we did. And one thing we both kind of noticed is any place where we could tell somebody had obviously dug, it's not always a good indication of where the gold is, because it's not like everybody knows what they're doing out here. Us, for example, on this trip, normally I would basically not have dug here. I would have just kept on going and said, I know what better gold looks like now. I'm going to find that and then dig there. And I'd rather, you know, waste a summer of gold mining exploring more and learning more about where gold deposits and how this lack of flood affects that and how to find gold than setting up somewhere just to say, cool, I found a gram of gold today, gram of gold the next day, that kind of thing. But since my buddy John's with me, I wanted to make sure we went home with some gold, and it was nice to kind of actually get digging again and sort of go through the motions. It feels good to actually be a gold miner, not just prospecting. But it's a constant learning process. I think we're leaving this place so that you can tell we've dug here, but at the same time, there's no mess where the tents were, you know, just sitting on top of the sand and then off they go. So anyone to the untrained eye just floating down this river, it's just a regular bank and there's no mess, no garbage left behind for sure. So that's the way I like to leave it. It's not an instructional how-to thing, but regardless of how you do your digging and leave your piles and everything, you know, if you pack it in, pack it out. Don't just leave a big mess everywhere. Something I always find important. Guesses. How much gold did we find? Jonathan?
I am guessing 3.3 grams because it's the exact weight on a Starbucks Northern Roast instant coffee package, and I think it would be really cool to find the same weight in gold as I had in coffee every morning.
I think my guess was 2.1 grams. I'd like to see a little bit over 2 grams out of it, but you never know. It was some coarser flakes, but the colors were low. We covered some decent ground. I didn't count shovels. I'm not sure how long we actually dug, but it'll be interesting. So we're going 2.1 grams.
3.3.
3.3. So it stays really shallow way out there. So if I keep backing up, it'll not really get much deeper. But I think that's enough that I can kind of motor the boat onto the trailer, and then I've always got that winch. I always leave my windows open when I'm parked in a river, just in case something were to go wrong and you lock yourself out. Looks like we got out of the water just in time. Check this out.
Ooh, jetboat regatta.
Those guys have a fleet. Here is all the concentrates from the trip. Not a whole bunch, not too bad. And I think today I'm not going to use a cleanup sluice. I'm going to throw everything through a 12 mesh classifier and then everything through a 20 mesh classifier. Just flip it in. Nothing in there. Is it really worth panning this for gold? No, but there's often, you know, some cool quartz looking stuff. It's nice to look through, and I do find it interesting to see how much lead I always find. There'll be some lead shot, some fishing weights, something in here. Usually, we'll see if the same applies to this spot. Little garnets, the usual. I'm used to seeing some lead. Nothing in that screen. This is everything that is plus 20 and minus 12. Nice and settled. Should at least find some lead in here. I'm going to start by panning off the front lip. Basically just rolling everything off the front, keeping an eye on all these pieces, but settle her down again. The color will start changing into more black sand as we go deeper. So I'm ready to back pan here, but just to get a close look. This is filming with the cell phone. It seems to do a better macro job than my other camera. So get just the right amount into the pan, shake her all out, and back pan. And whoa, okay. Can you see that? My eyes on it right now. There's just the one piece. That is insane. Okay, so I think if the shadow of the camera covers, get a closer look. That right there, I think that's the first piece I've ever found in Alberta that did not make it through a 20 mesh. Let me just back pan everything one final time here. Okay, so there's nothing else in there. It's just this one piece. But that piece, wow. It's actually big. So smaller than a 12 mesh. Oh, it's not sticking. I'm gonna scrape that up the side here. Oh, there it is. Sorry for the camera work here, but that is a piece of gold. Huh. Pretty neat. I don't think I'm going to see a ton of weight out of this dig, but that is exciting. So put that back in there, and Tailings La Trappe. This is just an old label, but this is an empty snuffer bottle, and everything's going to be going into this. So sorry if this is getting a little long and drawn out. I don't know how long the whole video is going to be, but the cleanup part here, I'm experimenting and I'm going to include this. This is everything that is, let me show you here. That is my 20 mesh screen, so everything that went through the 20 mesh and not through the 30 mesh. So everything that is bigger than a 30 mesh is in here. And we can already see that we're getting some little chunks of gold. And watch this, just a couple washes, and already we're getting some gold showing up here right on the surface. So then you gotta shake back down again. So it's just really, really heavy, and look, it's already showing up there. So I'm gonna start back panning at this point, which I should really have a tripod to actually demonstrate what's happening here, get a little bit of the water out. But with everything up at the front edge like this, then you basically start rinsing material back. And now we're seeing that there's a bunch of gold being exposed to the front, but all this material has been taken back. So I don't think I can really do this with the one hand, but this material down here, I'm just going to do it slowly to check that there's no gold I'm losing. So that looks good. But that's now taken out of the pan. And what's left at the front is significantly less than I had before. So I'm going to do that over again. So this is called back panning. And you're basically just, it's kind of like a miller table if you think about it. You've got a big wide surface and you're just really slowly rolling off the black sand. You can see those pieces of gold are a little more reluctant to roll down to the back of the pan. If I, you'll see them when they when they escape from you. This one-handed demonstration is tricky, but there you go. That's why I'm not a professional YouTuber. Thanks for putting up with me, guys. So right here, again, we're going to get rid of everything, double check that we didn't lose anything. And we've got, again, less material for the next time. So I'm just going to keep pulling that back until we just have the gold, and see you then. There it is. That is everything that is plus 30 mesh, but smaller than 20 mesh. I've only got one piece of gold bigger than that, and we'll put that back in at the very end. This is everything that is between a 50 mesh and a 30 mesh. There's a decent amount in that pan. The Miller table would make such quick work of this stuff. Same with this over here. This is everything sub 50 mesh, so the really, really fine stuff. Can't really get that to focus too well, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the bigger and then finish with the finer. In order to actually have a chance at panning this out, it's all going back in this bucket here, and then I'm just going to put like basically a small scoop in, back pan it, snuffer it out, small scoop in, back pan it, snuffer it out. Just because I don't feel like setting up the Miller table right now, and I'm kind of curious how long this will take. I still have this much to go for the plus 50 minus 30 mesh, and it's looking like, you know, it's starting to turn into gold. Just a spoon at a time in there, but oh man, I definitely appreciate my Miller table. Here's one more really cool tip along the way. Old prospecting buddy of mine told me this, and he's a legend. He likes to remain unnamed, but you know who you are. As you get down to the end, the more gold you have, you'll see there's floating gold on the surface. It's hard to deal with. So if I could just get rid of half this gold, that up top is nice and clean. So you can just sort of tap that to get it nice and clean. So here's my snuffer full of all of my gold. The old one-hand situation. Let's just snuffer up that line. Make sure you finish snuffing or it dumps it all back in. There. Clean the tube out real good. So what I just did is, I get the suds out of here, I removed that line of gold up at the top, so now there's less gold in here to be sorted. So just as you get to the bottom, and if you're finding that there's a lot of gold in your pan, then you can, let me get these suds out of here since I'm trying to film. Yeah, there's another tip, use some dish suds. Basically, now I've got a little bit less gold here, and I can continue to back pan that, and oh look, we've got a nice clean line of gold there. Again, I can tap to the front and snuffer out, and it prevents you from having such a big clump of gold. Like, you know, let's say you have a big problem, I have a whole gram of gold in here, it's really hard to back pan. Just suck out some of that gold that's clean, reduce it down, and then you can back pan until you get the next clean line of gold to get out of there. That took about 2.5 hours. A little bit frustrating. It was nice at first, sort of therapeutic to just play with your gold, but definitely a Miller table is a good idea. But just as an experiment, if somebody's starting out new in gold prospecting, you've got some concentrates, a classifier, and a gold pan, and basically there's a few points I brought up, tips that kind of help. So first of all, just classify. Second, one spoon at a time, just work with a small amount in your pan, do that back panning, and then kind of high grade along the way with the snuffer bottle. Just get that line of gold out of your pan as you go. Kind of a fun activity to do actually in the middle of the winter, or if you're honing your skills a little bit. Just right now it's like, you know, I got other things to do. I have a Miller table, maybe I could have just set that up. But it was still kind of cool to remind myself that it can be done in a gold pan. And even doing it now, I still learn some things along the way. Just refining the technique, you get a little bit better by that second hour than the first hour as you sort of remember how to do everything. So it's never a waste of time panning. It's just, it's a lot more efficient, especially if I have a lot more concentrates. Like if I switch mats and I come home with a ton of concentrates, I'll be using the cleanup sluice and the Miller table again next time. For now, let's let this totally dry out, and then it's time to put it on the scale. Here is your final result. We have 0.64 grams of plus 50 mesh
And this over here is 0.29 grams of minus 50 mesh. One thing that I think is going to be kind of interesting is of the total weight, what do I have written down here? 68% by weight is over 50 mesh, and only 32% by weight is sub 50 mesh. That's sort of similar to what I was seeing last year, but that is something to keep an eye on. If I switch mats and I try a different mat, am I going to be capturing more of this minus 50 mesh? Because I know I'm losing some gold, right? So the 32% to 68% ratio is something that is an interesting data point for me if I switch up my mats. That, as it stands, I'll combine both together and get a total weight, because the scale can be, you know, a little teeny off. It's reading 0.64 right now, but it was 0.63 when I wrote it down. 0.91 grams for that trip. It was probably about, say, 8 hours of digging. So, you know, dollars an hour wise, obviously not worth it. That one gram vial of gold is going to be just phenomenally valuable to my friend Jonathan. He's going to say, hey, remember that time I was out in that beautiful river, got to go swimming, got to have a little less dense smoke out there, fire by the side of the river. That whole experience will be remembered in a vial of gold. So that's where the real value comes from. But I'm not ready to make this channel about, look at all the great value I got in my less than a gram of gold for a 4-day, 3-night trip. The goal is still find better ground. It's frustrating me this year. I'm having a hard time dialing in where to go. I know I should be digging in better areas, and so I'm just going out to explore and try to find those areas that I know they're out there. Hope you enjoyed this little excursion, and let me know in the comments what you think about sort of the longer form cleanup, where I think I took a little more percentage of the video to go through the cleanup this time, but hopefully there's some good tips in there anyways. And as always, till next time, thank you for watching. Combine.